A 10-year-old boy named Malik Carter stood up in the middle of a courtroom, his small fist clenched tight, his young face burning with a determination that could melt steel. His voice rang out like a thunderclap. "He's innocent." For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. Every eye in the room turned toward him. The judge, an old man named Harold Winslow, known for his ruthless decisions and his rigid control over his courtroom, suddenly went pale. His hand trembled violently, and the gavel he gripped so tightly slipped from his fingers. It fell with a sharp crack against the wooden bench, echoing like a gunshot through the tense silence. No one moved. No one spoke. A stunned hush blanketed the room. The air felt thick, almost too heavy to breathe. It wasn't just what Malik had said. It was how he had said it. It was the fear that appeared in Judge Winslow's eyes, a fear that rippled across the faces of the powerful men and women sitting in the room. Something had shifted, something that could not be undone. Malik Carter was just 10 years old. But in that moment, he wasn't a boy. He was a force. 2 weeks before that day, Malik's life had been simple, or as simple as life could be for a black kid living in a run-down apartment in the poorest part of Crestview City. His mother, Dana Carter, was his world. A strong, tireless woman who worked double shifts as a nurse and still came home with a smile, even if it never quite reached her eyes anymore. Dana had taught him to be kind, to stand up for himself, and to fight for what was right. His father, Marcus Carter, had taught him about justice. At least, he had, before he disappeared 5 years ago. Marcus was gone, but his lessons lived in Malik's heart. Even when it felt like no one else believed in justice anymore, Malik did. But the world wasn't fair. Malik knew that. He saw it every time someone crossed the street to avoid him. He felt it in every suspicious glance the store clerks threw his way when he went to buy a soda. He heard it in the whispered slurs his teachers pretended not to notice. And yet, he still believed in truth, in justice, in standing up when no one else would. The trial that day was supposed to be a formality. The man accused was named Anthony Bell, a mechanic from Malik's neighborhood. A good man, honest, but he was on trial for something he didn't do. Malik knew that in his bones. Everyone in the courtroom had made up their minds. The jury, the judge, even Anthony Bell himself had stopped fighting. He stood at his table, shoulders slumped in defeat, as if he'd already resigned himself to his fate. But Malik couldn't let it happen, not after what he'd discovered. So when Judge Winslow raised his gavel to deliver the verdict, Malik stood. He shouted 2 words that silenced the room. "He's innocent," and everything changed. The bailiff was the first to react. Officer Granger, a huge, stone-faced man, started moving toward Malik, his heavy boots pounding the floor. His hand dropped instinctively toward the baton at his hip. But before he could reach Malik, Dana was there. She surged forward like a force of nature, planting herself between her son and the approaching officer. "Don't touch him," she barked, her voice fierce with a mother's fury. Granger hesitated. Just for a second. It was enough. Malik didn't cower behind his mom. His eyes stayed locked on Judge Winslow. And Winslow, his usually cold, dead eyes were full of something Malik hadn't expected. Fear. Real fear. The kind that meant Malik had just touched a nerve. The kind that told him there was more to this than anyone knew. 2 weeks earlier, none of this seemed possible. Malik had spent his days riding his bike around their apartment complex, flipping through his dad's old comic books, and helping his mom whenever he could. Life wasn't easy, but it was theirs. Then the letter came. It was a Tuesday. Dana was home late from work. Malik was at the kitchen table, drawing superheroes in a worn notebook. A knock at the door pulled his attention away. Dana opened it to find a man in a black suit. Tall, polished, cold. "Dana Carter?" he asked smoothly. She nodded. He handed her an envelope. "You've been summoned." Those words didn't make sense. Not at first, but when Dana opened the letter, the color drained from her face. "What is it, Mom?" Malik asked. She didn't answer. She just stood there, clutching the letter like it might burst into flames. Malik tried to read over her shoulder, but before he could see anything, sirens wailed outside. Blue and red lights flashed through the blinds. Then came another knock, this one louder. Harder. Police. Open up. Don Afros. Malik felt the shift in the air. Something was wrong. Very wrong. They didn't have time to run. The door burst open, and 2 officers stormed in. Officer Granger was one of them. The other was Lieutenant Harris, a man whose eyes didn't blink nearly enough. "We need your son," Harris said coldly. "Now." Dana's body tensed. "He's just a boy. What do you want with him?" "He's a witness," Harris replied. "We need him for a case." "What case?" Dana demanded. But Harris didn't answer. Instead, a man in a black suit appeared in the doorway. The same man who had delivered the letter. He said nothing. He only watched. Malik's heart raced. "Where's my dad?" he whispered. And for the first time, Harris hesitated. That hesitation told Malik everything. Marcus Carter hadn't abandoned them. He'd been running. From what? Malik didn't know, but he was about to find out. The power cut out. Darkness swallowed the apartment. Glass shattered. Masked figures burst in. It was chaos. Dana grabbed Malik and shoved him toward the back door. "Run," she gasped. But there was nowhere to go. A hand clamped over Malik's mouth. He fought, kicked, thrashed. He heard his mom screaming his name, but he couldn't reach her. Then gunfire. A woman's voice barked commands. "Get down." Malik hit the floor as a figure moved through the smoke. Tactical gear. Short hair. A gun in each hand. Evelyn Shaw. She introduced herself later. She saved them. Got them out. And when they drove away from the burning wreckage of their home, Malik realized his life was never going to be the same. Evelyn told him everything. The Black Veil. A secret organization that ran everything from behind the scenes. Judges, cops, politicians. They owned them all. Marcus Carter had worked for them. Once. Until he found out what they really were. So he ran. And he stole something. Something that could destroy them. A ledger. "Where is it now?" Dana asked. Evelyn's gaze flickered to Malik. "He hid it," she said quietly. Inside Malik. The revelation was too much. Malik was just a kid. He didn't remember anything. But Evelyn explained how it worked. How Marcus had broken the data apart and hidden it in his son's subconscious. They would come for him. Not to kill him. Not yet. But to use him. And then, who knew? They ran. From safe house to safe house. But the Black Veil was always a step behind. One night, Officer Daniels, someone Malik had trusted, betrayed them. He handed Malik over to Silas Kane, the cold, calculating leader of the Black Veil. Silas didn't threaten. He didn't scream. He smiled, told Malik lies about his father, showed him pictures, claimed Marcus was one of them all along. But then, the door blew open. Marcus Carter stood there, alive, furious. The fight between Marcus and Silas was brutal. Years of betrayal exploded into fists and gunshots. In the end, Marcus won. He killed Silas. But the fight wasn't over. Malik still had to unlock the ledger. They found an old warehouse, set up a live stream. Millions of people tuned in. Malik sat in front of a laptop, his fingers trembling. He closed his eyes, remembered his dad's bedtime songs. The numbers he'd tapped into Malik's palm as a game. He typed them in. The screen lit up. Files. Names. Transactions. Everything. The Black Veil was exposed. The world exploded in outrage. Arrests followed. Judges. Politicians. Cops. The entire corrupt system burned. Malik ran with his parents as the warehouse erupted in gunfire. But they had won. For the first time, they were free. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and share. And if you want more stories of courage, truth, and justice, hit subscribe. We'll be right here, ready to tell them.